Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Scuttlebutt. Before we dive into the episode, we are very proud to welcome and celebrate our first sponsor. D&D Metal Recycling and Auto Salvage began as a small hauling and used auto parts operation in the Pittsburgh area in the late 1970s and has grown into a full-service metal recycling company with two locations, Lawrenceville and Tarentum. These are state-of-the-art scrapyards with deep roots in the community and a strong commitment to the service of their customers. D&D accepts all types of metal, both ferrous and non-ferrous, that may be generated by industrial manufacturing, construction and demolition, small commercial entities, as well as individual customers. They have a wide variety of material handling equipment and are capable of managing any job in a timely and efficient manner. You can contact them for quotes and availability at dndautosalvage.com. That's D&D autosalvage.com. Thank you, D&D, for supporting this podcast. And now on with the show.
A gentleman says, Woody, why do you keep going? You know, he was probably 94, 95. Why do you keep going? What keeps you driving? And you know, why is this so important to you? Simply, honestly, genuinely, what he says, the cause is greater than I. And that cause is our Gold Star families.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of The Scuttlebutt. I'm your host, Sean Hall, the Director of Programming with the Veterans Breakfast Club. Our mission is to create communities of listening around veterans and their stories to connect, educate, heal, and inspire. Today is a special episode. We are going to do a collaboration with WTRF Veterans Voices and Kathryn Ghion, who you may have heard on the podcast before. And we're going to be interviewing the president and CEO of the Woody Williams Foundation. Oddly enough, usually we have a veteran here on the podcast with us, but today we are all non-veterans talking about a very, very interesting subject that the Woody Williams Foundation is part of their mission, is Gold Star families and the monuments that they're going to be putting up around the country that you may have seen already or maybe coming to an area near you. We're going to get into all that, but before we do, please like, share, subscribe, and ring the bell on YouTube so you are the first to know when we release new episodes. And we want to thank our sponsor for the Scuttlebutt, dndautosalvage.com. I'm going to hand it over to Kathryn for this excellent interview. Looking forward to it. Kathryn, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. I'm super excited to be here and to bring a little bit of West Virginia to the podcast. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, WTRF TV is based in Wheeling, West Virginia. I myself have been working in West Virginia for the last 6 years. And if you're in West Virginia, if you are a lover of the veterans community in West Virginia, then you know the name Herschel Woody Williams. He is certainly a treasure to this country, a treasure to this state, and the namesake and really driving force behind the Woody Williams Foundation. So Chad, let's just start. I am very familiar with Woody's story, but for those of us who are not, obviously we could talk about him for a full day. He's an amazing man, but introduce us. Who is Herschel Woody Williams?
Absolutely, be honored to. Of course, I have the extreme blessing of being his grandson outside of just being a part of our organization. So he would be my hero, even if he weren't my grandfather, but he definitely is that to me and to so many. And Woody's just a great example of servant leadership. You know, his whole entire life has been devoted to serving others. And it's something that he pressed upon our family growing up, is that we're here to serve others and we have to have a purpose in our life. Of course, many people know Woody's military background, but if there's somebody listening not familiar, Woody is the last surviving Medal of Honor recipient from World War II. And he fought in the Battle of Iwo Jima, as well as he also saw action on Guam. But on in his action on Iwo Jima, that would result with him being the recipient of our nation's highest honor for valor, the Congressional Medal of Honor. And Woody is quick to tell anyone, and for those that are listening that may have heard him speak or been to an event where he was present and sharing his story, he wears his Medal of Honor in honor of those who did not get to come home, and two Marines in particular that, quite frankly, when we think about the generational impact of service, I wouldn't be sitting here if those two Marines hadn't sacrificed their lives protecting him that day. It would have obviously changed so many lives, and that loss changed the lives of those two Marines' families. So I think that is something that when people think about Woody's action, they tend to focus on the military career, obviously very distinguished. He is one of a handful of those to receive that honor, but he has taken that and used that as a platform to serve throughout his life. And really that is him to a lot of people. In a nutshell, they know that he's a Medal of Honor recipient, but he is someone that just exudes the meaning of life in terms of purpose while serving others.
And your foundation does so many wonderful things, but first I want to talk about the Gold Star Families Memorial Monuments. We have one in Wheeling where I'm based, and it is stunning. And I know that the two gentlemen who gave their lives so Woody could live were a big driving force behind starting these monuments. So talk to everybody just a little bit about, what a Gold Star family is for those who may not be familiar, and how this mission started to put these monuments in all 50 states.
Absolutely. So our mission at the Woody Williams Foundation is to honor, recognize, and serve Gold Star families and the legacy of their loved ones who have paid that ultimate sacrifice. And that sacrifice was made in the armed forces. So Gold Star families are those who had a loved one sacrifice their life in military service. And, once again, to kind of back up to I guess what really started and inspired the foundation, our mission, and the monuments being our kind of one of our keystone programs. Woody, even before he went into the Marine Corps, was there in essentially northern West Virginia, right outside of Fairmont is where he grew up. And before going into the Marine Corps, they first turned him down because he was too short of all things. The Marine Corps later relaxed their height requirement, and he was able to obviously join the Marine Corps. But in that interim, he was working as a cab driver, delivering Western Union telegrams to families that were getting that dreaded knock on the door to give them the worst news that they could ever hear, being that their loved one had made the ultimate sacrifice. And he was doing that as a young man without any military training, without any training in terms of how to counsel someone or any kind of bereavement or anything of that nature. He didn't have any kind of that background. So for him, that was that first real experience that, it left it on his heart. And that was in our minds as we talked to Woody, and simultaneously, if we can dial back our minds and use our imagination, that the three of us are sitting in Fairmont, West Virginia in 1943, walking down the street and seeing a blue star flag hanging in a window, and you go a few more houses and here's a gold star hanging in that window. This is something that, he was seeing all the time. And it was something that was a part of the day-to-day, especially in the midst of what was World War II. But delivering those telegrams was really, I think, in speaking with him many times about what really was the seed planted. That was the seed. And one of his dear friends from his same little hometown there outside of Fairmont, Quietdale, West Virginia, gave his life. He was in the Army Air Corps. So when Woody came home, here was a gold star in that family's window. And then those comrades that laid down their lives for him, and those that he lost on Iwo that he was very close to, all of those experiences and the experiences with their families, that was, all of Woody's teenage life and then up to the end of World War II. And then he goes to work for the Veterans Administration as a veterans counselor. And once again, he's got Gold Star families coming to him to get their benefits and to get counseling and how to navigate the system. So his life, it's been this very consistent, source of impact in his life. And so fast forward all the way to his late 80s, where he essentially looked at the family and said, we need to do something. We knew nothing about nonprofit work at that point. We always joke, we learn a whole lot every day. We learn volumes every day. I don't think that will ever change anyone that has, from volunteering to working in the nonprofit world, you learn something every single day.
So true.
Absolutely. So that was, that was one of those things where he continues to reinvent himself now, getting ready to be 98 in October. My mother jokes, she is the youngest of his two daughters. Dad, what's next? Are you going to reinvent yourself again at 100? And I wouldn't be surprised if he did. I know that he always has a very thoughtful task list for us, because he's always looking at those areas of need. And that was really how the monument project started. He was a part of a group planning the Veterans Cemetery right there outside of Charleston, West Virginia, Donald C. Kennard Veterans Cemetery. And he said, hey, we've got to do something as a committee to honor these Gold Star families. And they said, great, now you've volunteered. So he designed this and designed the monument of the likeness of, you can see behind me. Mm-hmm. And that was the first one. And in order for us to really make good in terms of what our responsibility is, not just Woody as a distinguished figure and a public figure, but us as members of our community all across the country. It's our responsibility to honor those who have made those sacrifices to keep us free. And when we saw that first one installed, it was an aha moment. We felt that nudge on our shoulder to say, you're just getting started. You know, that was the end game at that point, was that single monument. But when we saw the impact on the Gold Star families, most importantly, and then the impact on the community, it was clear to us that we had a whole lot more work to do. And so then we formalized the organization, and obviously from there, we've been blessed with a lot of success in our mission, but we're just getting started.
So I read off of the website as of yesterday, but at the rate you guys are going lately, this probably could have changed. We have 82 monuments, 77 in progress, all 50 states, which I know was a big goal of yours, and 1 U.S. territory. I mean, that is quite a journey from that first one to now. And they all have such a beautiful design too, which I'm also going to have you talk about, because I know this isn't just something that you decide to put up on a whim. I mean, it's a very well thought out design to truly honor these families and their sacrifices.
Absolutely. To think of the footprint of this monument project, and folks that are interested can go to woodywilliams.org, and there's a map that's interactive. And when you zoom out and you look at the whole world and you look at the coverage of that, and then you start to see, with that 1 U.S. territory being Guam, in my mind, it's an opportunity to kind of switch to a different thought. If you think about each one of those monuments as there's the map. If you think of each one of those locations as a community that has Gold Star families in it, then you really start to think about the impact that it's, the monument, the numbers that you mentioned, there's obviously a continually growing presence, but there could never be enough done. And between those stars and between those, the blue dots represent projects that are in progress. Between those dots, there are families, and there are communities that have those Gold Star families in them. So like I said, we're just getting started. But when we think about each one of those communities, the monument itself is consistent in terms of layout. It's about 7 foot tall, about 15 foot long. It's made out of black granite, and it has a very distinct shape and layout. It's made to embrace. So the side that we're looking at here in this picture is consistent and gives that message: Gold Star Families Memorial Monument, a tribute to Gold Star families and relatives who sacrificed a loved one for our freedom. And on the reverse, it tells a story through our pillars, which is homeland, family, patriot, sacrifice, and that silhouette of the service member represents a legacy. So this particular picture here is at the Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio. And they went with more of a national theme with the homeland panels to really kind of encompass the nation, this being the Air Force Museum for our nation. But each community, this is a good example, works to choose what images are appropriate to represent their community and to represent Gold Star families. And, it really tells that story as it is embracing these families. It's something that indicates their support. So when that family is standing there and they're looking at the silhouette of their loved one who gave their life, they're being embraced by the monument. And if we think about the theme of it, is that monument is a representation of the community embracing that Gold Star family and embracing the thought that we need to carry on the legacy of their loved one. The old saying is that you die 2 deaths: when your soul leaves your body and when your name is no longer spoken. So this provides a place for Gold Star families to come connect grow their relationships in their community internally, but it also allows us as community members, whether military, veteran, civilian, come together and essentially embrace what it is that's been given for us to be free. And so the symbolism of how it's laid out is very deliberate. And then each one across the country, all 82 that have been installed, are unique in some way in terms of the images that are etched and depicted. And it allows ownership. So that monument, it's interesting. Woody, if once again, those who have heard him speak, considers himself the caretaker of the medal. The medal doesn't belong to him. The monument is much the same way. These monuments do not belong to the community. They belong to the Gold Star families. And we as communities are caretakers of that. So it becomes a part of the monument is the beginning. So in those 82 locations and the near 80 that are in progress, this becomes a part of their community. It becomes an opportunity for them that once you have it set, it's kind of like the Field of Dreams. You build it, they will come. People build these, and then it provides an opportunity for them to use it as a platform to serve. It allows us to have a constant reminder because of the permanence of the monument. You've got 15,000 pounds of granite sitting there. It's permanent. That is a permanent reminder, and it becomes a part of a landmark in your head, even subconsciously. If you pass this in your, say your daily commute or in your favorite park, you walk past it, it becomes a part of that community's thought process. So it's something that's a constant reminder that, hey, you're out walking in the park or driving down the street to go have dinner or going fishing or going to church or whatever it might be, out with your family. That did not come without a serious and significant price paid by the sacrifice of all those who've laid down their lives for our freedom.
And I think too, what's really important about this, just to share a personal story, I'm sad to admit this, but until I started working in West Virginia several years ago and heard of Woody and learned a little more about him and about the foundation, that was the first time that I was introduced to what a Gold Star family was. And I think another really important component of what you guys do here in honoring these families is, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but it's education too, because there may be people that obviously we honor our veterans community, and we know that so many throughout our history have sacrificed their lives for us, but there's a sacrifice beyond that I guess I don't want to say that I wasn't aware of, but I never knew of the term Gold Star families until I started learning about these monuments. So really, there's also an educational aspect and an eye-opening aspect that you are giving the communities in these countries in our country by helping bring these monuments to all these states.
It is so important for us. Once again, when we saw that first monument installed and the aha of, holy cow, this is so much deadly bigger than any of us. Mm-hmm. Our motto is something that we adopted from, out of Woody's mouth comes just genuine, heartfelt sentiment of, a gentleman says, Woody, why do you keep going? He was probably 94, 95. Why do you keep going? What keeps you driving? And why is this so important to you? Simply, honestly, genuinely, what he says, the cause is greater than I. And that causes our Gold Star families. That says it all. So much like that first one, hey, this is bigger than us. This cause is greater than any of us. And then the other extension of that is opportunities to educate and opportunities to kind of launch outreach from these monuments. They become kind of these forward operating bases for all mission related activities. So you bring kids along, and kid walks up to this monument and sees that beautiful and very distinguished message from the saluting silhouette of that service member who's not coming home. And you see them start to interact with it physically. And it is imposing because it's this beautiful, large piece of black granite. Mm-hmm. And kids immediately start to ask. They see that Gold Star, that it's visually impactful, mm-hmm. and it's something tangible enough that it becomes a really great tool to tell the story of Gold Star families. So you have the component of outreach and education. That's kind of our triad with what we're doing. Our three action words in our mission: honor, recognize, serve. All of those are components of that monument and supported by that monument, supported by those pillars of homeland, family, patriot, sacrifice, and legacy. So it kind of all builds from that. And the monument provides, once again, this really solid, permanent place to launch all these activities from. And when you have a kid walk up, I've had the honor of experiencing this. Two quick stories. Kid walks up to the monument, and we have several here. I'm in Louisville, Kentucky is where I'm located, and one is on our state capitol grounds in Frankfort. And it's one of those things when you're driving through there, you just feel it kind of pulling at you. Go, stop by, check on it, and it's in a beautiful location. Give it a little love. They're very easy to maintain, but it's kind of staff protocol. We keep rags and Windex in the car. So if we get to one and it needs just a little bit of shining and a little bit of love, so when our Gold Star families get there, it's in tip top. Pull in, young kid standing there with one of his parents, and they're using one of the walking loops through our state capitol, and he's just really taking it in. And I walked up and greeted them, and the father says to me, what's this all about? Much like so many people, they're not familiar with what Gold Star families are. So we walked over to the explanation marker. We started walking through what these scenes mean. Mm-hmm. We started walking around the monument, said, this is a Gold Star. This is the meaning behind it. This young man takes his hand and he's touching the granite, and you see it start to click. You see it start. And so, one of the things that we like to do is challenge people to stand up and step forward and do something very simple in terms of act of kindness. That is, if you do not know a Gold Star family, go out, get on the internet, get on our website, find the name of someone who has paid the ultimate sacrifice and say their name. That simple act of kindness is so powerful. And once folks do that, take that a step further. Go tell someone else that person's name. Go tell someone else that you learned about this individual and that they have a family that is forever without them. Go tell that story. And so I had the opportunity to challenge this family, essentially to say, hey, thank you for taking the time to visit the monument. Thank you for taking the time to, learn about what Gold Star families are and to learn about how this monument and the story that it tells and carry that forward, and challenging them to do that. That's a very simple and very, personal experience with that. And obviously that can happen on that personal basis, or it can happen with 1,000 people standing around when there's an event there. But the other side of the education, it's full circle. So we as a foundation committed to this mission, and I'm walking up to a monument, another one near Louisville and right outside of Fort Knox in Radcliffe, Kentucky. And there's a young man playing around the monument, which once again, you see this a lot. It's this big, beautiful, impressive piece of granite. And so if you're a little kid, you want to go over there and maybe stand on it or stand in the silhouette. And a gentleman that was working there at the Veteran Cemetery walked over and he said, hey, you want me to go tell that kid, get off that monument? And I said, no, sir. I said, it was one of those things. Obviously, listeners of this podcast can tell I don't have a problem speaking too much. It was one of those times where I felt the nudge of, hey, just stand back, shut your mouth, and just watch. And this young man got up in the cutout, and he's running his hands along the shape of that service member. Still chokes me up to this day. A lady approaches me and says, do you have anything to do with this monument? Yes, ma'am, I do. And she said, well, I don't know if you know this, but my husband sacrificed his life, and I bring him here to see his dad. So here was the two juxtaposed. You have a kid that walks to the monument and knows what that sacrifice is. He lives it every day. This young man lost his father. His mother lost her husband. And they experience that every day. Mm-hmm. Juxtaposed against someone who, in a similar situation, a parent and a child walk up to the monument that don't even know what a Gold Star family is and walk away with that lesson. Mm-hmm. And we hope that, once again, us as a foundation, we're focused on this, man. We are laser focused on this mission. And then there are things that happen to us on the human side that you just can't ignore. It's in my mind, it's divinely led. But when you're standing there and you observe those two very different but both powerful experiences, then it all comes together. And once again, the cause is greater than I. Any of us that work with the foundation, our volunteers, there is no way, at any given time, we have about 700 volunteers across the country. And there's no way this happens without them. But it's because of those experiences where we see the impact. That's what it is truly all about.
I don't know if anybody heard the ding, but that's the aha moment there. That's the and I can think of no greater lesson than the stories you just told for the Memorial Day. And I believe that this episode is being released on Memorial Day, oddly enough. That, look to your Gold Star families, the ones that have made the sacrifice, and look for the monuments that the Woody Williams Foundation has put up to honor the Gold Star families and honor those who have given the ultimate sacrifice for the country. We always say here at the Veterans Breakfast Club, like, before, we're both the executive director, Todd DiPastino, and myself, we're both on Veterans Memorial Day. Before thinking about veterans is really just a day to go have grilled hot dogs. But it means so much more than that within the veteran space, and should mean so much more within the civilian community, that we should be educating ourselves more and more about those who have given their lives, about the Gold Star families who have made this sacrifice. I can't think of a better way also just to check out the woodywilliams.org website, donate to this cause. This is a great mission. Kathryn, I'm speechless in a way.
I know I am as well. I mean, the mission is just so much to be admired. And Chad, quickly, because I know that, you and the foundation are very busy. You have a lot going on today. But you guys do much more than just these monuments. I know there's so much more that you do to help and support these families other than bringing the recognition to them. So just tell us a little bit more about, the other pillars of your foundation and the other things that you do that combine into this mission to help and serve these families.
Absolutely. Be happy to. The three mission segments we have are obviously the monuments that we've talked about, outreach, and then education. And where the outreach lies is everything from hosting Gold Star families at a professional sporting event and making them the VIP. In our minds, they need to be our heroes, and their loved ones need to be our heroes. And so we've seen guys that have won World Series tip their hat and say thank you to these families, as they should. And you see the general public go, once again, wow, these people are who we need to really pay tribute to. So that's one example, is the Gold Star Family Day at the Ballpark program that we have. Another one is something that we're engaged in today with our partners at Carry the Load. We're going to be a part of their national relay that ends on Memorial Day in Dallas, Texas. We're going to get together, and we're going to get our Gold Star families in the community together, and we're going to get civilians together and part of our military and veteran space together, and all come into the same physical space. Thankful to be able to do that safely now, and say the names of their loved ones, and really make those connections in the community through outreach events like that, through rallies, through 5K, memorial walks, memorial events. All of those plug into our outreach programming. We have another one called Operation Horse, Honor, Recognize, Serve, a horse. And so it's at an equine competition, and we assign each competitor the name of one that has paid the ultimate sacrifice, and they get to learn about that person, not just they served in the Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Coast. It is literally, his name. I'll use one of our families as an example. Brandon Scott Mullins gave his life in Afghanistan, serving in the Army. I knew his name. I knew that had happened because I know his mother and know his family, but I didn't know that he liked to play hockey. I didn't know that he was a jokester and loved to joke around with people. Those are stories that we share along with those identities, along with those profiles. And then we connect, if the Gold Star family would like to connect to that person. And so we see those outreach events where we bring Gold Star families into a public event. We make sure we tell the story of every, of them and their loved ones, that we say their names, and that we educate through that outreach event what a Gold Star family is. And then other outreach pieces that we do, we pride ourselves on open door policy for any of our Gold Star families, regardless of what they need. If it is something that lays outside of what our capability, or it's something that we can't provide at that particular moment, we're committed to find someone or some partnering organization to make that happen. Whether it's advocacy for their benefits, or if they're having a tough time financially, those are things that we've participated in, whether it be storm damage or what our Gold Star families experienced during 2020. You think Gold Star families, it's not like they got to hit pause when COVID hit and say, well, then it's all of what a Gold Star family deals with every day. And they deal with it with such brilliant strength. It is hard to even in words describe that, but they're dealing with the loss of their loved one, or they're dealing with the impact that across their family. And then they've got COVID on top of that. So we think of that's a good example. Last year, we had some families that really needed some help. And typically they are so very humble and so very quiet about that. And they are so strong that without those relationships, we can't even identify the need. So once again, the outreach component of those public events helps us to build those relationships so that we can, better serve these Gold Star families, because they may know one another and know one another's needs in such a very unique and private way, but they can pull us in and say, hey, this family could use XYZ. So that's part of how all the outreach, on the face of it, you have this great ball game and everybody's, having a good time and playing ball and eating popcorn and having, just having a day at the ballpark. But all of the impact of that is layered well beneath. And that's really where the why lives. And then on the education side, we have scholarships that are given to Gold Star children, eligible Gold Star children that aren't covered by government benefit, which are very unique situations. And then we advocate on behalf of these Gold Star families, whether it be through private institutions. We're working on several things with partnering organizations to advocate for expanded educational benefits. And so that we can also not narrow the opportunity of Gold Star families. So if we have a family, certain and very unique situations where maybe the benefit has been exhausted, but they want to continue to better themselves and better their family's life by maybe getting another certification at a trade school, getting a master's degree, getting a doctorate, whatever that might be. And that may lay outside of what benefits they have. We want to advocate for that. So we want to go to either the institution or our state government or federal government to say, hey, we really need to take care of these families. And we definitely, I think it is wonderful that exists as far as those benefits for these families. But I can tell you from the outside looking in, they could use some improvement, and there's never enough we could ever do. And it really it's going to take all of us, not just working in an advocacy role or going to an institution to get funding. It takes all of us to get together, because we can make a real big difference or make a dent. Let's say, you have a county or a town that has a family that might need something. By God, there's enough people in that town. We can help these folks.
Right.
And I think, when we look at how all of those pieces work together, it truly does. It's this woven mission between education, outreach, and the monument. Because the monument, and what our hope is not that we get to have the blessing of coming and being a part of, of Wheeling. I'll use that example since you know that community so well. We don't want to just come in and be a part of building this monument and just say, peace out, we're done. We want to come in and support that in perpetuity. We want this to last for generations and to grow. So there's an expectation of the community that, hey, each year on Memorial Day, we're saying these names, we're honoring these families. We're also going to support some outreach in our community. And you know what? There might be a way that they can fund that education, and there's surely a way in terms of supporting the advocacy part of that. So all of those program points have come built from the monument. because it was not what's next. It was, here's an opportunity. It was now we've got our footprint here. We see people learning. Well, now let's do something with that. And so the outreach and education are the other two components of what we do. And those continue to grow. And I'll use another example of the monument. Right now we're working on an initiative, and each existing monument, this will be added to, our interactive experiences and things on a digital platform, whether it be through a QR code or a proximity chip, where anybody can walk up and they see the monument, they learn about it from the explanation marker that's there, but then they can do a deeper dive and they can find out. I know for me, as a young man, I wanted to know. I grew up in Cabell County, West Virginia, and I wanted to know more about those who had paid the ultimate sacrifice in my county. Well, how do I do that? Well, at that point, this monument didn't exist. But how do you do that? Well, we're hoping to utilize these pieces of technology, which to me is magic, but use these pieces of technology to bridge that information gap and facilitate that. So it does further educate the public. And so we can tell the stories of the families and tell the story of their loved one. I think one of the things that's going to allow us to do as well is, anytime you think about, we're such visual creatures. What does a Gold Star family look like? It looks like your family. It looks like my family. It looks like everyone's family, because that's the human connection that we all have. Our families are all unique. They all have their own makeup and look different, but these families, that's who they are. They're your neighbors. They're your classmates. They're your coworkers. And I think the human side of that is so very important for people to put a face with the family that gave one of their own, so that your family could live and be free. To me, that's such an impactful message. And so all of those pieces kind of tie together. And through the monuments too, we build these relationships and communities that facilitate all of that other work. I mean, for us, once again, without those relationships and support locally, we're stopped in our tracks. We can't press on with that, but it gives them ownership and gives them a part in that.
Boy, Chad, I feel like I was just at a TED Talk on like nonprofit management. The passion and knowledge that you show for not only the foundation's mission, but what you guys do is exquisite and inspiring. And it's interesting. A lot of the things that you talk about sort of align with what the VBC mission is in just storytelling, getting the veterans' story out there, bridging the military-civilian divide so that civilians can understand more about military culture. And I think Gold Star Families is a huge part of that. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. And I appreciate the kind words. I will embrace the words of our founder, my grandfather: the cause is greater than I. And that's really what drives it. And I think you bring up an excellent point. And I would like to ask you a question about this, and if it's something that you've seen. I know for us, veterans in general, even because many of our Gold Star families are veterans, we have a ton of veteran families. In fact, we have families that are both Blue Star and Gold Star families as we speak. Generational service, and in one generation, a loss and a continued service. We see the interaction between our programming and veterans as such an important component, because for us, we see families look at veterans as their loved one. So especially if it's a battle buddy, that represents their loved one. They were with their loved one in some of the most trying, times that could have been, precursor of their loss even.
Yeah.
And then the veteran sees the family of their battle buddy as their buddy.
Yeah.
So have you, as far as through your all's work and this podcast and everything you're doing to tell those stories, have you experienced that or seen that with that kind of interaction?
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, in every breakfast and even through COVID with the online platform that we've sort of developed, This sense of community is so strong. The veterans want to be around each other. They want to be around each other's families. They support each other. The civilians that have come in and have been really touched by these veterans, our veterans' stories, and the losses of the Gold Star families that are a part of our network. All I see is this level of support grow consistently. And to new families and to new networks, and as we even sort of expanded nationwide, and just people that are hearing about the mission and coming on and hearing the stories and then wanting to reach out and wanting to know more. And it's sort of like you just plant a little seed, and suddenly that sprouts something, just like you said with the family that was at the monument. And like, what is this all about? We've had people show up at VBC breakfast or in our programming, and they're like, well, I heard about this. What's this about? And then they spend an hour learning, and they're inspired to learn more. I know I've always been interested in veteran stories, but something didn't touch me as very real until I became a part of the VBC and really started sitting down person to person with veterans and listening to their stories face to face. That's when a lot of the books that I was reading became like instantly in my face. Like, they were real. This person was at the Battle of Iwo Jima. This person was at D-Day. This person was at in Afghanistan or in Iraq. And that was something that blew my mind so much that I was like, I need to learn more about all of this, and I want to tell others about what I've learned about their sacrifices, the way that what battles they've been a part of. I think that's part of that bridging of the divide is not just sitting down and saying thank you for your service. It's really taking a personal ownership over educating yourself, and hopefully to help educate others about what veterans do for us.
Absolutely. I think coming into Memorial Day, one other thing that I'll mention is, and you alluded to it earlier, you think of it as, oh, awesome, we get a day off work, we're going to have a cookout, we're going to do, and that's not where it started, and that's not what we should think of it. And I know that, obviously with the Veterans Breakfast Club and folks that are going to listen to this, I would venture to say that most of us probably don't view it that way. We view it as it should be viewed, and honoring those who gave their life in military service. And I think even that educational piece, us talking about that, taking an opportunity, as we're, walking the grocery store the other day, and here's all these, big end caps with flags and, trying to, that's not, that gives us an opportunity, I guess, is when you're in that situation, you can say, hey, do you know what Memorial Day is about? It's about those who sacrificed their life in military service, and to teach the difference between Veterans Day and Memorial Day. And in the veteran space, what we experience, I know that talked to Woody, my grandfather, about it yesterday. He feels a responsibility as a veteran to really lift up the true meaning of Memorial Day, because that's obviously what we do every day with the foundation. When you think of these families, every day is Memorial Day. That chair is empty. So when general public or people, as we all do, we're all guilty of letting things maybe slip out of perspective. But I think we have a responsibility as those in our communities, just us three even, that are part of this podcast right now. We have a responsibility to carry that message forward, because when we're sitting there at the picnic table, there's an empty spot at a Gold Star Family's picnic table. And so Memorial Day, the meaning of that, I think it's so important, and we are honored. I am especially honored that to have an opportunity and a platform to get on this podcast with y'all, especially in May as we approach Memorial Day and on Memorial Day, to really try to just keep that in the front of our minds and really think about the true meaning of Memorial Day. I think that if we as a community can really focus on that, I think part of where we're at as a country, if we really spent some time focusing on that aspect of our country, I think it would do a whole lot to heal a lot of the divide that we have, because it doesn't matter what walk of life or where you fall in terms of opinion, we all live under the umbrella of that beautiful flag that's behind you, and the freedom that it represents. That's all of us together. And so I think we all have a responsibility to tell those stories, and once again, just really appreciate being on and appreciate what you're doing and giving a civilian like me the opportunity to come on and be a part of this, and that you're carrying veteran stories forward, and that you're providing a platform to tell the story of Gold Star families and their loved ones, and especially on Memorial Day, to honor the legacy of their loved ones who gave the ultimate sacrifice so that we can all be free.
Kathryn, and I know that through Veterans Voices, you're doing the same work, just trying to get veterans' voices into the community.
Yeah, I mean, really, that's what it's all about. We, as civilians who have had people in our family that have served, I think we're very aware of what our family members have gone through. Even if they didn't make the ultimate sacrifice, they still sacrificed in some way. And with Veterans Voices at WTRF, we do, like you said, share that same mission. We want people to understand their stories of service, and we want them to preserve that story of service. I think of my grandfather, who's right there behind me, and he never talked about his service when he was alive. It was only after he passed that I started to learn a little bit more about it. And I think that we not only need to remember those who have passed, but do the due diligence of really getting to know the stories of the service of the people in our lives that served while they're still here, so that sadly, when we don't have them anymore, we can still pass their stories on to our kids, our grandkids, and then they'll pass them on to their kids, so that their names never fade. And I would like to issue a challenge, I guess, on behalf of all of us, to those who may listen and are not, in the veterans community, or maybe didn't have that much of a connection to Memorial Day beforehand, to do what you said, Chad, to find the name of a Gold Star family and, say the name of their loved one out loud, or to find the name of someone from their community who did die serving our country and say that name out loud. Maybe do a little bit of service. I mean, the library, or a little bit of research. The library will help you. Google will probably help you in this day and age. So let's issue that challenge to everybody to keep those names going this Memorial Day and beyond. It's a mission greater than all of us, as you say.
Love that, active kindness. I really liked that term.
Absolutely. And Kathryn, thank you for what you're doing. I mean, this is a really great example with Veterans Voices and with WTRF. Once again, you're using that as a platform to make a difference in the community, tell those stories that need to be told. And then once again, here we all sit, I'm hundreds of miles away in Louisville, Kentucky, and we're able to interact. It's one of those things, and I guess it's being raised by especially a World War II veteran that lived through the Depression. Excuses don't fly around Woody's house. But I think with the technology and the way we're connected, none of us have any excuse to not do exactly what Kathryn's talking about. We do not have. There is no good excuse to not take, even if it's taking a moment on Memorial Day. Say before. And Lord knows I'm probably going to eat too much on Memorial Day, and I'll have big old plate of food. But I'm going to tell you one thing personally I'm going to do before I even think about that. We're going to take some time and we're going to say names, and we're going to really think about what the day really means. And it, like I said, with all of the avenues of learning that Kathryn just talked through, it's really easy to find the name of one of those. I know that it's something when we have an opportunity to read names, and it is something that we've started doing on Memorial Day. Even at the monument last year, I was at two different monuments on Memorial Day reading names. And of course, in COVID, it was a very kind of solitary experience, but through these things that we all have to carry around, love them, hate them, we were able to share that with people. This year we're able to share it with people in person. And so I really encourage everyone to, just like Kathryn said, get on Google, do a little research, do a little good. And, there are tons of ways to find those names and help keep their stories alive.
And we really have no excuse. I mean, look at Woody. He's 97 now, I think I saw, and he's still going and doing all this. So anybody out there has no excuse to not do it if Woody is still as active as he is. So
True.
That's right. I'll tell a funny story on him. He through another West Virginia veteran who happens to be a fellow Marine. Woody has been loaned semi-permanently a slingshot, which is a little 3-wheeled kind of roadster open top vehicle.
Oh.
And it's pretty fast, and it's 5-speed, and he is 97, be 98 in October. And I'll get a call every once in a while from back home in West Virginia saying, I think I just saw your grandpa pass me going at least 20 miles an hour over the speed limit. But when you just see the energy in him, and just wanted to share that story with you. But yeah, you're right. We ain't got no excuse. And people are always saying, Chad, well, you've got the genetics, I'm hoping I got a big old dose of that. But I asked him last week, we were in Texas dedicating 2 monuments and doing commemoration of another one in the space of 4 days. And at 97, boom, boom, just right there, sharp as a tack. And we call him Papaw. It's really very odd when I'm talking about him. I have to call him Woody, in the space like this. Well, Woody, it's Papaw. I said, Papaw, when does the energy kick in? I was just kind of dragging, man. And I said, when does the energy kick in? And he said, son, I don't rightly know. I don't ever remember not having it. And I thought, yeah, that's what makes him. He's exceptional. So
talking to 2 sleep-deprived parents of toddlers here, so we're both looking for that energy. So
yeah,
if he
I'm gonna harness some Woody energy from now on.
Yeah,
I think.
There you
seriously.
go. There you go.
Chad, thank you so much for joining us on the Scuttlebutt and Veterans Voices this week for the Woody Williams Foundation. We will definitely refer people to your website, and hopefully, I'm up in Pittsburgh. Hopefully, we see a Woody Williams monument come to us. Would love to see that in our community, as it's a bit of a drive from Pittsburgh, either south or east, to see one. So, we'd like to get one here.
Absolutely, and we'd love to facilitate that. And being a Steelers fan, that would
hey
give me an excuse to drive up more often.
And continuing the conversation here, from what Chad was talking about and just the idea of Memorial Day, and I'm interested in understanding more about, as my cat decides that he wants to come join the conversation. Say hi, buddy. Yeah, I'm interested to. I don't know if we've ever really dove into what Veteran Voices is, but I think this is a great opportunity to let at least the Scuttlebutt audience know more about what you're going to be doing.
I would love to. So I started Veterans Voices going on 3 years ago now, with a almost year-long break due to COVID-19, sadly. And it was all inspired by that man over there. That's Radio Man First Class Ralph Delos, aka Papap. To me, he was a World War II Navy veteran, and he used to tell little snippets of his service, but not really. And it was only after he passed and we started finding a little more of his things. We found his Navy uniform, we found a scrapbook, we found letters, that I really started to dive into his service. And I thought to myself, I would give quite literally anything in this world to be able to sit down with him for one more day and just make him talk about it and get his full story of service. So I thought, I don't want another child to feel the way I do once their loved one has passed. So I started Veterans Voices, and it's literally just that. I go into these veterans, I go to their homes. Sometimes they meet me at the WTRF studios. And these are folks from all over the Ohio Valley, which is the northern panhandle of West Virginia and parts of Southeast Ohio. And I go to their home and we just talk. They share stories, they share memories, they share photos, they share, mementos that they kept. Some stories are serious, of the gravest nature. Some stories are funny. It's just whatever they want to share and feel comfortable sharing. And I have learned so much from them. And every time I interviewed a World War II Navy veteran, and I heard about his time on the ship, and it made me in a way feel connected to my grandfather. So I looked for that little bit of connection too, but it's been so well received by the community because I take that interview, which is oftentimes an hour plus, and I condense it down somehow into 2 minutes and we air it on WTRF. But then I also take the full unedited interview and put it on a DVD and give it to that veteran and their family so that someday when they're no longer here, they can sit and listen to the voice of their loved one talk about it. And I just think that's such a treasured thing to have. I wish I had it, and it's an honor to give it to these families. And I've interviewed 20 plus veterans now, and I still keep in touch with a lot of their families. And sadly, some of them have passed away. We've lost 2 of the veterans that I've interviewed, and I still keep in touch with their families, and they are grateful to have that memory. And I'm just so thankful to give it to them. And it's my absolute favorite thing I've ever done in my career. And I'm so thankful that my station gives me that avenue to do that. In West Virginia, I mean, they love their veterans. So it's been very well received.
And that was going to be one of my follow-up questions here is other than maybe learning more about just military culture in general, which I could spout off so many things that I've learned over the last year that I didn't know prior, just being with VBC. But is there something, I don't want to say like a life lesson, but is there something more that you've learned being a part of these conversations?
I've just learned a lot about really what it means to truly sacrifice and to give of oneself. I mean, some of these gentlemen that I talked to, they were severely injured and they came back and were still going, or they enlisted again, just that calling of service. And I'll tell a quick story because this sits with me. There's a gentleman named Jack Ernest. He's from Jefferson County, Ohio, and he will not mind me sharing this, I'm sure. I was speaking to him one day and I said to him when we were leaving, I said, "Thank you for your service." And he said, I don't really like when people thank me for my service. And I said, "Why?" And he said, "I would rather people thank me for their freedom," because that's why he was there. So now I carry that with me. Instead of thanking veterans for their service, I thank them for my freedom, because without my PAPAP, without Woody, who we just talked to, without all of our veterans, every single one of them, whether they served wherever, whenever, however they served, we wouldn't be free and we wouldn't be here and we wouldn't be living the life that we're living. So we owe all of that to them. And I just really want people to understand that.
Yeah, I think it's a great lesson. And I remember learning that lesson myself, talking with the veteran, and I heard him say it. He just said, I just want to thank all the veterans here for my freedom. And that so struck me. And I was like, and I said the same thing. I'm like, I'm going to carry that with me, because that sounds truer than me just saying, thank you for your service. Thank you for choosing to go and fight for our freedoms. But I really think it gets down to the heart of it. Thank you for my freedom. I love that. Boy, yeah, I loved the conversation that we had today. I'm definitely going to follow the Woody Williams Foundation more now that I found out about them, and I'm hoping that they're going to kind of come on and join us again for another VBC event. And I'm looking forward to you and I in future collaborations. Yes,
and everybody needs to hear Woody speak. I have not heard him speak in person yet, but I watched his entire speech when they dedicated the Gold Star Families Memorial Monument in Wheeling. And I've heard some of his speeches through the television station several times. And he is they broke the mold when they made Woody, and his family, clearly, because Chad was also wonderful. And the work that they're doing, I just cannot encourage people to check them out more. I mean, I can't encourage that enough.
Well, Kathryn, I want to thank you for this collaboration between WTRF Veterans Voices and the Scuttlebutt. And to our listeners, make sure you check out woodywilliams.org. Check out Veterans Voices on YouTube. And you can download the Scuttlebutt anywhere you get your podcasts. And you can also find us on YouTube, which I find to be just the best my preferred method of checking out this podcast. I really enjoy watching it on YouTube. But like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, and definitely connect with us. Send me an email at Shaun, that's SHAUN, at veteransbreakfastclub.org. We'd love to hear from you and your thoughts on the episode today. We will be back next week for more Scuttlebutt. And Kathryn, thanks for joining us, and we look forward to having you on again.
Always a pleasure. I'll be here anytime.
Thank you again, everyone, for joining us for another episode of the Scuttlebutt. I want to thank D&D Metal Recycling and Auto Salvage for their generous support and sponsorship of this program. You can find their locations, get quotes, and ask about availability at D&Dautosalvage.com. That's D&Dautosalvage.com. We'll see you next week here on the Scuttlebutt.